If you ever find a trail thought isn't on the map, don't follow it, because some paths were made to trap you. This is a SMR 404 found. Use headphones and subscribe before the woods find you. They say if you stand still long enough in the sawtooth backcountry, you'll hear the trees whisper. It's not the wind. It's not animals rustling. It's different. It has cadence. It has memory. When Marcus Rayner disappeared from Black Pine Ridge Trailhead in August of 2021, no one was surprised, not really. Not if you'd lived in Fairfield, Idaho long enough. Not if you'd grown up hearing the stories. But the sheriff still organized the search parties. They still brought in dogs, still swept the entire length of the trail 3 separate times. Nothing, not a shoe, not a backpack strap, not a blood trail, just gone. But see, this story isn't really about Marcus. Not exactly. It's about me. Because I went looking for him. Not because I cared about Marcus. We'd only met once at a barbecue, my cousin. He was forgettable. If I'm being honest, skinny. Way too excited about dehydrated trail food, and wore the kind of sun visor that just screams wannabe influencer. But something about his disappearance scratched a part of my brain that wouldn't leave me alone. I work maintenance for the Sawtooth Forest Service, mostly fixing busted railings, painting boundary signs, and occasionally shoveling out the pit toilets. The job gives you a lot of time alone in the woods. And sometimes you start to feel like the trees are watching you back. After Marcus went missing, I volunteered to inspect the Black Pine Ridge area. The official reason was trail safety. The real reason, curiosity. It was early September when I hiked up there. The first frost had already killed off the mosquitoes, and the sky was painfully blue, the kind of color that almost feels fake. I parked my truck at the base of the ridge and signed my name on the trail register, even though nobody ever checked it. The trailhead was marked by a wooden post that leaned just slightly left, like it had tried to stand up straight but gave up halfway. I carried a pack with 2 days' worth of supplies, a handheld radio, a sidearm polycyan, an old laminated topo map of the ridge. There were unofficial offshoot trails scribbled in with pencil, some fading into the forest like veins of a long-forgotten body. I'd heard the rumors, of course. People claimed to see strange lights out there, claimed they'd hear footsteps just behind them when they were sure they were alone. I figured it was just the altitude messing with heads. Thin air and a lot of silence make for good hallucination fertilizer. About 3 miles in, I passed the last man-made structure, rusted bare box bolted into a rock. Beyond that, it was all pine and scree and silence. No birds, no bugs, just the crunch of my boots on the trail and the occasional creak of wind through branches. I was aiming for a section known as Dead Drop Gulch, about 7 miles up. It got name from a rock slide that killed 2 hikers in the 80s. Locals said the land never recovered, till it felt tilted there, like gravity leaned the wrong way. I reached the gulch by early evening. Shadows were already stretching long across the ground, and the temperature had dropped fast. I set up camp just off the trailer flat patch, by of dirt ringed by crooked pines. As I built a small fire, I noticed something odd. Every tree around me leaned subtly inward, toward the center of the clearing, like they'd been pulled that way over decades, like they were listening that night. Sleep was impossible. I'd lie still for maybe an hour before something would snap in the woods. Not a regular twig snap either. It had weight behind it, like whatever broke it had knees. I radioed in around midnight just to hear another human voice. Static, not even a burst. I tapped the side of the radio. Nothing. Then, for half a second, I thought I heard breathing through the speaker. Slow, deep, wet. But it was gone before I could speak. At around 3:12 a.m., I saw the first light. It wasn't fire. It wasn't a flashlight. It was pale blue, almost phosphorescent, and floated between two trees maybe 30 yards away. It bobbed slowly up and down, as if held by someone walking, except there were no footsteps, no sound at all. I stared for what felt like a full minute before it blinked out. Not like it moved away, more like someone flipped a switch and erased it. My heart was beating in my throat. Every hair on my arm stood at attention. I didn't sleep after that, just sat up with my sidearm across my lap, waiting for dawn. When the sun finally clawed its way up over the ridge, I packed quickly. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but logic won. Marcus had come through here. Maybe that light was a clue. Maybe it meant something. Maybe I wasn't alone. I followed the direction of the light. There was no path, not even a game trail, just thick underbrush and a carpet of pine needles that muffled every step. About 100 yards in, I found a small clearing. Dead center was a tree massive, ancient, blackened as if it had been struck by lightning. Its bark was cracked and curling away in sheets like old paint. But there was no sign of burning, no ash, no scent of char. It looked scorched but untouched at the same time. Pinned to the trunk was a torn strip of neon yellow nylon. It flapped slightly in the breeze. I recognized it immediately. The same color as the compression straps on Marcus's pack. I reached out and tugged it free. It wasn't sun-bleached. It hadn't been there long. Just as I pocketed it, I noticed the carvings, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, covering the lower 5 feet of the tree. Some were names, some were just lines tallies, maybe. Others were symbols I didn't recognize. Spirals, nested triangles, a crude eye with a slit pupil. Most were fresh. Some bled sap like they'd been carved that same week. I didn't stay long. The air around that tree was wrong. Heavy, hard to breathe. Like standing too close to an old battery. I hiked hard for the next few hours, trying to get my head straight. Nothing made sense. The deeper I went, the less reliable my map became. Landmarks didn't match. Trails veered off in directions they weren't supposed to. At one point, I crossed a small stream that wasn't marked on any chart hand I knew. These charts, I'd helped make them. By late afternoon, I stumbled across something even stranger. A tent, slumped and weathered, half buried in pine needles, but intact. The brand was Ray. It looked about 2 years old, judging by the model and sun fading, but inside, everything was pristine. A sealed bag of freeze-dried chili mac, a sleeping bag still rolled, even a water bottle, full, and Marcus's journal. It was unmistakably his name written in Sharpie on the inside flap. I opened it slowly, unsure of what I was hoping to find. The first few pages were normal. Gear checklists, meal plans, notes, but the trail. Then madness. Page after page, filled with frantic scribbles. Some words repeated over and over like chants. They don't blink, don't eat the berries. The trees rearrange when I'm not looking. Then a single entry, written in all caps. They follow when you look away. The last page was blank, crisp, like he'd planned to write more. Like something stopped him. I stuffed the journal in my pack and backed out of the tent. My skin itched. The wind had stopped entirely. Not a leaf moved. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. I should have turned round, should have gone back to the trailhead, but I didn't. Something about that journal pulled at me like a hook in the gut. I needed to know. Not for Marcus, for me, because deep down, I'd started hearing the whispers, too. I hiked northeast, away from the tent, relying on the sun's position since my compass needle had begun to spin lazily, never pointing in any consistent direction. At first, I thought it was just busted, maybe something magnetic, nearby interfering, but when I took out the backup from my pack, it behaved the same way. It pointed west, then east, then jerked north, before settling on no direction at all. Something was wrong with the land itself. It didn't look different, not from any normal forest. Pines, rocks, moss-covered logs, but something about it was rotated, as if space bent in places. A ridge I climbed an hour ago now appeared behind me. A dry creek I'd crossed twisted back into view 2 more times. I started marking trees with orange tape, but 5 times I passed the same mark again. Time warped to dot. My watch said 2:45 p.m. for 3 straight hours. The shadows didn't move. The sun hovered in the same part of the sky, locked above the ridge like a photograph. Eventually, I gave up on the watch and used hunger and fatigue to measure the day. At some point, I stepped into a hollow between 2 high ridges, where the air dropped 20 degrees instantly. Frost coated the ferns. There was no snow anywhere, belts in the sawtooths that week, but down here, frozen crystals clung to branches like bone dust. There were stones piled in a circle there, low and uneven, like the outline of a ruined cabin or shelter. Lichen-covered and half-sunken, it felt ancient, older than anything human. And in the center was a pit, black and bottomless. No scent, no sound when I dropped a pebble in just darkness that swallowed it whole. Beside the pit was a ragged tarp, weighed down with rocks. Against every survival instinct I had, I pulled it back. Underneath was a corpse, not a skeleton, not remains. A full, intact body, skin grey-blue, eyes wide open, glassy, mouth agape like it had died mid-scream. The clothes were standard hiker gear, thermal jacket, hiking pants, boots, but the face was wrong. It wasn't rotted. It wasn't decomposed. It was stretched, skin drawn tight, like something had pulled it from the inside out. Cheeks hollow, lips cracked and dry. The hair was white, but the ID card in the front jacket pocket said the man was only 34. His name was Bryce Willoughby. I'd heard that name 2 years ago. He went missing after hiking Black Pine Ridge alone. Everyone assumed a cougar got him, or that he'd fallen down a ravine. His family held a vigil, but now here he was, preserved. Like the forest never let him rot. Something rustled behind me, and I froze. Not wind, not a deer, breathing close. Wet, ragged, right at my back. I spun and raised the flashlight. No, one was there. But there were prints in the frost, barefoot, human-sized, leading away from me. And then doubling back, then stopping just short of where I stood. I didn't run. I couldn't. My knees barely held me up. My body was a war zone of adrenaline and nausea. Somehow, I made myself walk back to the trail. I no longer trusted the map or my memory. I moved by instinct, marking every other tree with tape, whispering the names of my parents under my breath just to keep the voices out. Because there were voices now, not words. Not at first, more like hums, echoes, a low cadence. Bet rose and fell with my footsteps. That night, I didn't make camp. I just sat on a flat rock and stared at the trees. Sleep was out of the question. Every time I blinked, I imagined Bryce's face. And every time I blinked, the trees looked closer. I tested it. I'd fix my eyes on a trunk 15 feet away. Close them. Count to 5. Open. 12 feet. I kept the fire burning high. Fed it with bark, paper, even one of my spare socks. I didn't care. I just needed the light. At one point, something stepped into the glow. Not an animal, not a person. It was wrong. It stood just at the edge, where the light turned to shadow. I couldn't see features, but it was tall, too tall. Its joints didn't move right. The elbow bent backward slightly, like a hinge that never healed, and it watched. I knew it was watching. The way its head tilted slowly to the side, curious. Then it stepped back. One slow movement, 2. Gone. The forest swallowed it like it had ever been there at all. I should have broken then. I should have screamed or cried or emptied my pack and curled into the fetal position. But I didn't. I just sat there, hollow, and waited for morning. When the sun finally climbed into view, it was wrong again. It wasn't where it should have been. The shadows bent east when they should have fallen west. My internal compass was shattered, and so was the forest's. That morning, I found the second journal. It wasn't Marcus's. It was older, water-damaged, tied shut with a string of pine. Needles knotted like twine. Inside were entries dating back to 1993. A woman named Clara, a botanist, She'd come to study an unusual species of fungus growing only at high altitudes in the sawtooths. She'd set up camp near Black Pine Ridge, and then she started hearing the whispers. They began as dreams, then songs, then commands. She wrote that the forest spoke in symbols, that certain patterns appeared in the moss, like sigils, that if you stared too long, your thoughts no longer belonged to you. Her last entry was just 2 lines. The pines are not trees, they are sentries. That was it. Later that day, I found another hiker's boot, newer than Bryce's gear, a size 9 women's Salomon. Inside was a foot, still inside the sock, cleanly removed. No blood, no animal tears. I threw up behind a stump and moved on. The trail bent backward, again looped on itself like a Möbius strip. By late afternoon, I spotted my own boot prints from the day before. I recognized the scuff on the right heel. I'd been circling, trapped in a loop, and whatever lived in that forest wanted me to know it. I gave up on the trail and cut north through thick brush, following the sun not where it should be, but where it moved. I figured anything was better than waiting to die in a maze of roots and shadow. And then I found the mouth, not a cave. A mouth dot in the base of a rock wall. The stone had opened, unnaturally lipped and layered, like jaws. The opening pulsed, faintly, as if breathing, all around it. The pines leaned forward like worshippers. The ground trembled, once, twice, and then something groaned, not a sound of pain. Something deeper, like the groan of a mountain rolling in its sleep. I backed away slowly, but the trees shifted again, blocking paths I'd just come from, every direction except forward, except into the mouth. I was being herded, the journal, the sigils, the dead faces. It wasn't random. The forest wanted me. And I had a terrible thought. Maybe that's what happened to Marcus. Maybe he didn't just disappear. Maybe he walked in. Maybe, like me, he couldn't stop looking. I didn't go in. Not then. My mind screamed to retreat, to run, to claw through the underbrush until I hit something human cell. Reception. A highway, a voice. But the way the trees had shifted, the path behind me was gone. No trace of my boot prints. No orange tape. Just endless green-black verticals, leaning closer now, too close, like they were holding their breath. So I stayed frozen for what must have been 30 minutes. The mouth in the rock didn't move. Not in a physical sense, but I felt something press against my thoughts, like static under the skin, like an idea, not my own whispering. Just look inside, just step forward. I don't remember taking the first step, but I did. And then another. The interior wasn't stone, it was soft, damp. The floor beneath my boots pulsed slightly, not enough to throw balance, but enough to know it was alive. The smell was metallic and sweet, like rust mixed with decaying flowers. My flashlight barely cut the dark. The walls soaked in the light instead of reflecting it. I followed the curve of the passage for what felt like half an hour, though it could have been minutes or days. Time didn't mean anything anymore. Then I came to a chamber, circular, large, hollowed like a stomach. The walls were slick and lined with root-like growths that pulsed with a dull amber glow. But the worst was the center. It was Marcus, or he used to be. His body was suspended 3 feet off the ground, tangled in strands of what looked like blackened ivy, but it moved like sinew. His eyes were open, dry, cracked like porcelain left in the sun. His lips were torn at the corners from smiling too wide, but he was alive. His chest rose, slowly, strained, but breathing. I whispered his name, and his head twitched. His eyes locked onto mine, and I swear something behind them moved, like there was more than one presence looking through those sockets. Then his mouth opened. No words, just a sound, like wind dragging nails across glass. I stepped back, nearly, slipped, and caught myself on the wall lift. You could call it a wall. It shuddered at my touch, like muscle flexing. And from somewhere deeper, a groan echoed. Not sound, vibration. It made my teeth hurt. Marcus blinked. Once, twice, then said, in a voice that wasn't his, "You've seen too much." The ivy thing holding him jerked him upward, like a puppet, head snapping back so hard I heard vertebrae pop. His mouth hung open, still smiling. Then something emerged, not from him. From it, the space behind him twisted, and something stepped through, but it didn't step. It slid. Its form was tall, wrongly tall, limbs too long, joints that bent. Twice, its head was smooth, no face, just ridges where features should be. It pulsed slightly with the same amber light as the walls, and it saw me. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. That moment snapped whatever was left of my sanity, and I turned and ran. I didn't care about noise, about light, about leaving tracks. I tore through the tunnel, gasping, sobbing, screaming for help I knew wouldn't come. My flashlight cut out after I slammed into a wall. I felt along the sides, moving by feel alone. Behind me, I heard a dragging sound, wet, measured, patient. I don't know how I got out. I don't remember the moment I breached daylight, but suddenly I was outside again, and the trees were quiet. No humming, no shifting, no breathing. I stumbled forward until I found the trail again, or some version of it. It no longer curved wrong. No more loops, no more mirrored shadows. It felt real, grounded, like whatever had warped the world was satisfied now. Like it let me go, maybe because I saw. Maybe because it wanted someone to tell the story. I limped until nightfall, built a fire, didn't sleep. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept my sidearm aimed at the dark, even though I knew it wouldn't do any good. That thing, whatever it was, didn't need doors or paths. It moved through the world like thought. The next morning, I made it to the ridge. By noon, I saw the trailhead parking lot, and then I cried. For real, for the first time since I was a kid. A ranger found me 5 hours later, babbling, eyes bloodshot. He said, I was 5 days overdue. 5. I had only packed for 2. They ran medical checks. I was malnourished, dehydrated, covered in thin scratches and bruises. And something else, something under my skin. The doctor didn't see it, but I could. Feel it, a hum, a whisper, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine, deep inside my spine. They kept me under observation for 2 nights. I didn't sleep either of them. Eventually, I told my supervisor I was resigning. No explanation. I burned the journal. I deleted my GPS tracks. I tried to forget, but I can't, because sometimes, late at night, I still hear it, the forest calling. I think it marked me. Sometimes, I dream of Marcus's face, smiling, frozen, eyes full of light. Sometimes, I wake up with pine needles in my sheets, and once I woke up with dirt under my fingernails. Not just dirt, frosted dirt. The kind that grows in that gulch. The kind that never melts.